afternoon. My name is Michelle Carter, and I'm from the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. I am the DBE program chief there. DBE stands for Disadvantaged Business Enterprise. The DBE program is a federal program, and I'll talk about that a bit further. But the bottom line is it is an affirmative action program implemented by Congress through the U.S. Department of Transportation. And you actually here in the state of Wisconsin, there are several partners who also have a DBE program. It's a requirement as a recipient of federal funds. So here you have Milwaukee County, Dane County, the city of Madison, and us. That's Wisconsin Department of Transportation, who all are required to have a DBE program because we receive federal funds. Again, remember, this is an affirmative action program, and you all know that affirmative action is a dirty word, depending on who you ask, right? Like, do we need it? Is it good? Is it bad? But the program has survived since 1982. Actually, Congressman Perrin Mitchell initiated the program along with the Minority Business Development, the MBDA Council back in the 80s. And then he had the wherewithal to say, let me tie it to something else, to some legislation, so that it will live on beyond him. So the program is, in some regards, the way the program is structured is one that does not necessarily support the great idea of good business. But the point is there's a lot of money that come into all of our states, a lot of money. So the feds pretty much say, this is our money, and this is what we want you to do with that money. And so DOT has to do that. So as you know, Wisconsin Department of Transportation spends anywhere between $1.2 and $1.6 billion a year on its transportation infrastructure. So we see lots of opportunity. I told you about a couple of those other partners, which we call UCP partners, and those partners who also run their programs, they don't deal with the transportation dollars like the orange cones on the interstate. And I'm sure that you all are acutely aware of all of the challenges with the transportation bill and should gas tax money be added there. So what I want to do today is do the public participation phase of the DBE goal setting. And so I will tell you now, and I will tell you at the end what I need from you. There's a clear process that they write out in the Code of Federal Regulations that tells us how we should get to this goal. But the step 2 of that is to look for adjustment factors. So once we've set a numerical goal, are there other factors in the community, other documentable factors in the community, other numbers that we could apply to be able to say that this number should be higher or this number should be lower? And they intentionally tell us to go out and talk to minority business opportunity type entities, so state organizations, city organizations, chambers of commerce. That's actually what the feds ask us to do. Talk to you all and find out if you indeed, and they say talk to the minority organizations, those that represent the people who have been disenfranchised by the federal government. So again, you are the audience I want to be speaking to, and I want this all to make sense so that you can use this later. So again, the DBE program, it is the law. It's a federal program, but it's implemented in each state. So every state has a DBE program because every state gets some of this federal money from the U.S. Department of Transportation. It's the law because it's part of Title VI. It is also the law because it's part of the transportation bill. Every time the transportation bill is approved, they review the DBE program and say, is this still in the compelling interest of government? And the last time they did that, they actually had a number of DBEs, certified DBEs from across the country, come and give testimony to Congress to say, yes, discrimination still exists. No, the playing field is not level. So again, it was written in this transportation bill. The whole idea of the program is to be a remedy. And it's also very narrowly tailored. And again, I'll speak to that a little bit more. And it's supposed to be, again, as I said, so think remedy and think narrowly tailored. And then guidance. Everything about this DBE program is written in the Code of Federal Regulations at 49 CFR Part 26, and I'll reference that a few times. There are 8 objectives of the DBE program, and you will see, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but the big one, ensure non-discrimination. And they make it a point to say non-discrimination, and it's really much about inclusion, but the DBE program actually has some presumed categories, which are all people of color, and actually they actually have lists for people from other countries. There are some that count and some that do not automatically count. Women are automatically in that group, but you have to be socially and economically disadvantaged and own a business, and the business must be small by SBA size standards. And you'll see that on that DBE fact sheet that you have in front of you. So again, It's not, they are very clear, because in order to be legally defensible, the program cannot be a minority program, because they would say that does not stand up in court, right? So socially and economically disadvantaged are the two requirements, and that they have to be a small business. So ensure non-discrimination in the award of the federally funded contracts. So at DOT, we do hundreds of contracts. I'm talking literally 900 to 1,000 contracts a year, lots and lots of contracts. But we can only, the DBE program is only applicable to those programs that have those contracts that have some federal money in them. So when you hear the governor talking about we're going to fund that with all state dollars versus we're going to put federal money on it, so when you think Marquette Interchange, when you think I-3990, US 41, which became I-41, all of those, federal money's in that. But when you see your state highways and those trunk highways, those may not be. So just know that this applies to those things. But the feds always expected that the good stuff would trickle down or trickle over. So if you do the right thing with your contracts that have federal money, you should also do the right thing with those who have state money. So creating a level playing field. Ensure that the program is narrowly tailored in accordance with applicable law. So that's where they get touchy, and it gets to, are we doing something to harm non-DBE certified businesses? So they will ask us that question. Ensure that only firms that meet the eligibility standards are part of it. That's the certification process. You may have heard about DBE certification, but that's our certification process. Help remove barriers to participation for small businesses, these DBE businesses. I think a number of you probably have heard about the veterans businesses. I think Robson and I just went to, you know that the veterans now have a chamber of commerce, and there's a bit more emphasis. They are not listed as a presumed category for this program. However, any individual, if they can prove their social and economic disadvantage, they can be in the program. They still have to meet the same eligibility standards though. So removing barriers, promoting the use of DBEs in all types of federally assisted contracts. I told you about that already. The other part of this is to help develop firms so that they can compete successfully within the department and outside of the marketplace, because the DOT, even though it's federal money, they want to see that the businesses that were cheated because the federal government said no women, no people of color, they want to make sure that they too have an opportunity outside of our market. So make them better so they really can compete. Then provide appropriate flexibility. There are about 35,000 certified DBEs nationally. These are our 2015 numbers. And nationally, about 12% of all federal dollars go to DBE certified firms. But the truth is, most of those firms are owned by white females. And you kind of see the male-female split in Wisconsin, and then looking at it overall. So the program, I think, we clearly believe that it does make a difference. But the truth is that the federal government, and you all know this, the bigger government comes with bureaucracy, comes with paperwork, comes with bigger contracts, which makes it harder and harder for the little guy to be able to participate. So there are some challenges, but again, the program does make a difference. It has created access for the DBE certified firms. So here in Wisconsin, we have 906 certified DBE firms, and they do all kinds of things, from janitorial services to selling steaks to the transportation industry types of contracts. You will see that, so you see these slices. Native American is this, the white slice. Hispanic American there, still pretty low. Caucasian, 38%. Black there. So you have white women followed by black males that are the majority of DBE certified firms. Now, when we talk about who gets the most money, it is overwhelmingly the white women. However, you still see that there is participation in all the other groups. You know that there's been some disparity studies as of late. I think City of Madison did a disparity study of just their public contracts, and they said there was no disparity. That was interesting. They said there was no disparity, but that there was still a very small number of firms that were competing or participating in their contracts. So no disparity, but small number, and yes, they should do more to get people involved in the contracting opportunities. We also had, remember, City of Milwaukee had this big controversy not that long ago where they did a disparity study, and they said there's no disparity for black people, no disparity for, they had a really strange number like 0.00 something for Native Americans and point something something. So they got challenged, and then they just threw out their whole disparity study. So that disparity study stuff is a real challenging thing, because it's where do you pull your data from? Who are you talking to? If you just look at a subset, it might not give you, it's not going to give you a real picture. You got to look at the whole state. You got to look at different kinds of contracts, but that's a whole different story. But my point is, there is opportunity. We do see people participating. But for us, for Wisconsin DOT, when we set our DBE goal, we think about those contracts that the types of contracts that we let. So transportation, again, think orange cones and highways. We're talking about trucking, like dump trucks. Like when you tear up all of that asphalt, you got to get it out of the way to come back. We're talking about when we say something about erosion control or landscaping, we're not talking about the guy with a shovel and the truck, right? We're talking about somebody who can build a retaining wall like outside of the airport. So those are the kinds of jobs that we're talking about. So out of that 906, only about 300 or 400 of them, let's say 340 something, actually do our transportation work. So that's the numbers we count, and I'll come to that more when we get into the goal setting numbers. So our overall annual goal, and I started to allude to this goal, the number that we put together, that we have to calculate every 3 years, is supposed to be a proxy for the level of participation by small, minority, and women-owned businesses if the federal government had never condoned discrimination. So, I'm going to tell you the number, and then you'll kind of say, does that feel right? That's what I want you to tell me, like, that doesn't really feel right, or, that's about right. So, it's supposed to account for that level of participation, and again, in the transportation market. So, not overall, because very often we want to go, what's the unemployment rate? Or what's the because we can look at, right, the unemployment rate in Milwaukee, very different than the unemployment rate when you look at statewide. You take some zip codes, it's pretty high, right? It can go all kinds of ways, but it's really supposed to be overall, where are we? So that's what that number is supposed to represent. Transportation industry, that's the number we're working our way to, and you need to tell me if it makes sense. The process they tell us is you first get a head count, and that's where I told you that 906. We take a look at how many DBE certified firms do transportation related work. And so it's literally an equation. The numerator is the DBEs who do transportation related work. The denominator is all other firms that do transportation related work. Now what we don't do, they tell us we can use census data, but as you can imagine, that would be humongous. So we look at what we call our bidders list. So what we at DOT, we have people who have to get pre-qualified. We have people, all DBEs have to register because they're part of our system. So that's where we're counting all of them. We look at the vendor net, which is the Department of Administration's tool. So we take a look at some of those and we try to figure out who does transportation related work. And then again, who's competing, who's interested. So that's how we get that head count. So this head count, this is a clean number, and they call this is legally defensible. Because like I said, affirmative action program, you got to be able, if you get sued, if somebody says that wasn't fair, you got to show that you follow some clear and logical things. That's what that narrow tailoring is about. So we did our head count. Then you go to the step 2 adjustment factor analysis. So we've talked to some of our stakeholders, and we talked about things like this last audit that they did at DOT, right? That made these recommendations. We talked about the governor's budget decisions, right? He said no more money to the urban areas. I want to give it all over here. And they said, okay, well maybe I will, maybe I won't. So we talked about those, and what we were looking for was a number to be able to apply to that head count. So the head count put us at about 12%, and we're trying to figure out, should we go up because we can document that there was discrimination and say because of the 2% of something in the financial market, we should take this number up, or does that mean we keep it where it is? So that's what we're looking for. Step 3 is we have to evaluate how much of the goal, how much do we need to assign? How much mandatory sharing do we require at DOT? How many contracts do we say 10% goal, 20% goal? How many of those do we do versus how much do we believe that DBEs will be able to compete? We have a history in Wisconsin DOT of we have some really good engineering firms, because engineering, the people who actually do our design specifications and our proposals and plans, who tell us, we're going to put together a 4-lane highway, a 6-lane highway, make it this tall, put some tunnels in it. Those people, a number of them are DBEs who prime. So like from Dar Engineering, Abdul had been, Matthew Therineal from Bloom has been a DBE. KL Engineering is another, but there are some that you may have heard of that often win and compete and win fair and square. So that makes it look like we can set less of a number because it's going to happen anyway. Step 4 is public participation. So we're supposed to be talking to you again, and then we adjust as needed. So if you all give me comments today, if you all give me comments, if you submit comments, and we have the last slide, if you think about something, I'm going to include that all in my plan, because I write the plan up, I give it to my leadership, and I say these are the numbers, and this is why I changed them, and this is why they reflect that. Then it goes to a lawyer at WisDOT who makes sure that it looks legally sound. And then it goes, and then they decide yes or no, if it's a go or no go. So your participation, and then we adjust as needed. So this is about where we are. So we do analysis on both types of contracts. Wisconsin DOT does a bid letting the second Tuesday of every month except for October. So there's opportunities there, second Tuesday of every month across the state. And again, you're talking about a good number of contracts each of those months. And so when we do that, we actually look at how many of those contracts are federally funded, how many of them have federal money on them. And we think about things like, where's that contract located? Is it all the way up in Eau Claire, Wisconsin? Or is it down here in Milwaukee where we have lots of DBEs? We look at the kind of work in the contract. We look at those kinds of things. So of the construction-led contracts, we set goals, and we had been at 13%. We set the goal to cover a 3-year period. 2015 through 2017 was the last goal. We were at 13%. We went down when we did our head count number, and you can imagine that some people have gone out of business. DBEs and non-DBEs, folks have gone out, said it wasn't worth it. We were at 13. Now after we did our analysis, we're at 11. Professional services, again, that's the engineering, design, geotechnical, traffic control, all of the design, professional service, like something you need an engineering degree to do. Most of those, we were at 19.69 in the past, last 3-year period. This time we inched up just a little bit to 20.90. On the construction-led contracts, so we do something, remember that dividing up that step 3, I talked about how much of goal do we assign. Of that 13% before, a little over 10%, 10.5, was money that we could assign. So think about $500 million of federal funding is generally what WisDOT expects. So that $500 million, so you're talking about 70, 80 million was where we were. Then it's kind of changed to the 11% of the 5, so again, it's still 500 billion, which is what the estimates still are. So it's a decent amount of money. It's not so the numbers kind of get us there. But we want to know if you have other information that we should be doing something different. Like, are there some new programs? Are there some new businesses like this? Does the Veterans Chamber have any impact? I know last time I looked at numbers for the Veterans Chamber, they still were very, very low, a low number of firms who were DVB certified. So we feel like that 11% is pretty close. So 19.6, so we went up a little bit. So it doesn't feel, my personal opinion, doesn't feel bad. We have talked to National Association of Minority Contractors, American Indian Chamber. We've talked to them. They had helped us with some analysis as well. NAWIC, National Association of Women in Construction, gave us a little feedback. And they were like, yes, but. So we feel that's kind of where our numbers are, but you all represent businesses in the area, real businesses, and so again, we want to make sure that there's not something that we're missing. So again, here's how our goals go. Here's how we think of goals at Wisconsin DOT. It's supposed to be an aspirational monetary endeavor. Ideally, what we're doing is we're telling contractors, you are required to share. So we write a number. So we say, here's the contract. They're going to submit their bid for that contract. And they say, and we say we have a 10% goal on that. So they're supposed to go out and at least make sure that that individual contract, that they're doing all the solicitation, that they're contacting all businesses who could potentially participate on that contract. Now they're required to use our DBE directory, so those DBE certified firms. That's what they're required to do. So, but if they do more, we say, okay, that's what you're supposed to be doing. Thank you very much. Keep doing that. So we set that goal like that, so like that 10%, and it's different goals for different contracts. But when we set that goal, we're always kind of looking at how do we get, are we tracking to get to that overall number? So again, that 85 million that I said is kind of our overall, that represents the 13% or 11%. Are we tracking to meet that? So that's kind of how we get there. So like I said, what I'm trying to get to is what can you, so what do I need from you is any information you might have that says there are businesses that might be interested in the opportunities at Wisconsin DOT. Because one, it is my job and my team's job to come out and talk to folks if they're interested, if they think they're interested in certification, and there's no cost. And the piece of paper, the DBE fact sheet that you have in front of you, on the back of it, it lists the kinds of contracts we usually let you see, typical subcontracting opportunities. And it says it both for the construction let side, and it also says it for the professional service side. So we are never trying to convince firms to get certified. We're never trying to convince them to do that. But we're saying if you're interested in our kinds of contracts, Milwaukee County's kinds of contracts, because the DBE certification is the same and it works with all of them. If you're interested in Dane County's kind of contract, if you're interested in any of those, then you might want to consider getting certified, because all it takes is time. It's asking questions about your business. And the reality of it, certification is about confirming that the disadvantaged person really owns the business. So truth be told, even though it's a great idea to have a financial backer and an angel investor, we wouldn't certify as, you know, I'm going to call myself black, right? And I'm pretty broke, right? We don't usually use that criteria, but my social and economic status would make me fit the program, right? And I have some business acumen. But if I were to say, here's my business, and all the money, my investments in the business came from someone else who didn't look like me, then I would not be certifiable. So even though I looked the part and could do the work, I would not be certified, because what the feds are trying to say is we want to make sure that the people who were squozed out, who were left out before, we want them to have the opportunity. So that's what this process is about. So even though there's some good business principles that make sense, right, the partnering and getting a good investor, that certification process does not necessarily support that. So you all might hear about that sometimes. But we do want to work with you. If you have people, if your members are interested in hearing about what we can do, we gladly will come out to you. But again, today we just want to make sure that what we do, this number is our way to force access to opportunities. But thank you very much for your time, and again, please send in your comments. We really would like to help you.